Kazimierz Nowak's hands gripped the throttle as the metal sent a chill through his fingers. The freezing air of the winter morning had seeped into the Warsaw train station, but the cold wasn't what made him tremble. The paper in his pocket was crumpled, worn from being read too many times. Just a few words. Train 4471. Warsaw to Auschwitz. Cargo. 340 persons. No stops. Cargo. They called people cargo now. Kazimierz had worked these rails for 6 years. He had hauled coal, grain, weapons, but this morning, for the first time, he would board a train where he could hear the voices of human beings. In the dark corner of the station, an SS officer smoked a cigarette. His eyes were fixed on Kazimierz, watching every movement. The machinist had no choice. Either he would drive the train or he wouldn't return home that evening. Maybe his family wouldn't either. Kazimierz blew the whistle. The train began to move slowly. Every sound on the rails echoed in his ears. Tick-tack, tick-tack. Regular, mechanical, merciless. But then other sounds began to emerge. From the wagons behind, crying. Children's voices, screams, fists pounding on doors. Kazimierz closed his eyes. He held his breath, but the sounds didn't stop. The train passed through Warsaw's outer neighborhoods. Snow-covered fields, empty villages, abandoned houses. Poland wasn't what it used to be. Everything was under Nazi control. Everything was silent. Kazimierz's mind was at home. His wife Helena had woken early that morning. She had packed bread in his bag. There was something in her eyes. Fear or pity. He didn't know, but Helena knew which train her husband was driving. Everyone knew. "Just do your job," Helena had said. "Don't do anything else. Please." Kazimierz gripped the throttle tighter. The train accelerated. Only 2 hours had passed. There were still 150 kilometers to Auschwitz. The journey would take 4 hours. 4 hours of hell. A voice rose from the wagons, a young woman's voice. She was speaking Polish. "Please, can anyone hear us? There are children here. Please stop the train." Kazimierz turned his head. His eyes searched for the SS officer. The man was walking alongside the wagons. His weapon was in his hand. He looked at Kazimierz and shook his head. The meaning was clear. Keep going. The machinist blew the whistle again. The train passed near a small village. An old Polish woman stood by the roadside. She held a hat in her hand. She watched the train. Tears were in her eyes. Kazimierz knew what that old woman was thinking, because everyone knew where these trains were going and no one was coming back. A child began to cry. The sound was very close, as if right behind Kazimierz, but it wasn't. The child was inside a locked wagon, perhaps in his mother's arms, or perhaps alone. Kazimierz had children of his own, 2 sons, 8-year-old Piotr, 5-year-old Marek. Every morning they hugged him. "Tata, come home early," they would say. Now, Kazimierz was hearing other children's voices, and he was taking them to their deaths. The train rounded a curve. The forest began. Dark pines waited silently under the snow. The rails stretched straight ahead. There were no obstacles, but in Kazimierz's mind there was a plan. 15 kilometers ahead, there was a railway junction, an old track connection. If Kazimierz switched the points, the train would leave the main line. It would enter an old, abandoned route. It could stop there. The SS officer wouldn't notice, at least not immediately. Maybe he could gain 10 minutes. Maybe he could open the wagons. Maybe people could escape. Maybe. But then, what would happen? What would happen to Kazimierz's family? The SS would find the machinist immediately. His family would be punished too. Helena, Piotr, Marek, all of them. Kazimierz pressed the steam pedal. The train accelerated. The junction was approaching. 10 kilometers remained. Kazimierz pulled out a photograph from his pocket. His family. Helena was smiling. The children were happy. The photo had been taken on a Sunday before the war, in the park, a sunny day. Now there was no sun. Kazimierz put the photograph back in his pocket. 5 kilometers remained. The sounds from the wagons hadn't stopped. A man was kicking the door. "Open it! For God's sake, open it!" Kazimierz closed his eyes. 2 kilometers. The SS officer came to the front of the train. He looked at Kazimierz, searching for any slowing, any suspicious movement. 1 kilometer. Kazimierz's hand reached toward the switch lever. Just one movement, one pull, the train would change direction, but his hand trembled. Helena's voice echoed in his ears. "Just do your job." Piotr's voice. "Tata, come home early." The junction came. Kazimierz didn't pull the switch lever. The train continued on the main line. The machinist lowered his head. Tears fell from his eyes, but no one saw. The SS officer turned back. He was satisfied. Kazimierz listened to the sound of the rails. Tick-tack, tick-tack. The journey continued. The landscape outside remained unchanged. Endless white fields, bare trees standing like skeletons against the gray sky. Occasionally, a farmhouse appeared in the distance, smoke rising from its chimney. Normal life. People living, eating breakfast, unaware of the cargo passing by their homes. But Kazimierz was aware. Every second, every meter of track, he was aware. The voices from the wagons grew quieter now, not because the people had stopped trying, but because they were exhausted, cold, hopeless. A woman's voice began singing. A lullaby. Kazimierz recognized the melody. It was the same song Helena sang to their sons. The same gentle rhythm, the same words meant to calm a frightened child, but this child would never sleep peacefully again. Kazimierz's throat tightened. He wanted to scream. He wanted to stop the train, throw open every door, let everyone run, but his hands remained on the controls, moving forward, always forward. The SS officer climbed into the cabin. He stood behind Kazimierz, watching the rails ahead. "You've done this route before?" the officer asked. "Yes," Kazimierz replied quietly. "Good. Then you know there are no delays allowed." "I know." The officer lit another cigarette. The smoke filled the small cabin. Kazimierz felt it burning his lungs, but he didn't cough. He didn't move. "Some machinists try to be heroes," the officer continued. "They think they can save people. They can't. They only destroy their own families." Kazimierz said nothing. "You have children, yes?" "Yes." "Then you understand." The officer left the cabin. His boots echoed on the metal steps. Kazimierz understood. He understood perfectly. 2 more hours passed. The train crossed a bridge over a frozen river. Below, ice covered the water completely. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. The wagons were almost silent now. Just occasional sobs, whispers, prayers. Kazimierz thought about the junction again. The abandoned track. The opportunity he had let pass. Could he have done it? Could he have saved them? Maybe some would have escaped. Maybe 20 people. Maybe 50. But the SS would have caught most of them, and his family would have paid the price. Was that worth it? Kazimierz didn't know. He would never know. The towers of Auschwitz appeared on the horizon. Tall, dark structures rising against the pale sky. Barbed wire fences stretched endlessly. Guard posts every 100 meters. The train slowed. Kazimierz felt his heart pounding. This was the end of the journey, the end of his responsibility. Soon these people wouldn't be his cargo anymore. They would be someone else's problem. But would that make it easier? The train entered the camp. Rails branching in multiple directions, signs pointing to different sections. Everything organized, everything efficient. The train came to a complete stop. SS soldiers surrounded the wagons immediately. Dogs barked viciously. Commands were shouted in German. The doors were unlocked. People stumbled out, blinking in the daylight, confused, terrified. Kazimierz remained in the cabin. He stared straight ahead. He didn't look at the faces. He couldn't. An SS commander approached. He carried a clipboard. "Count?" he asked. 340, Kazimierz replied. The commander checked his list. "Correct. Departure time, 7:30 this morning. Arrival time, 13:15. Within schedule. Good." The commander signed a paper and handed it to Kazimierz. "Return to Warsaw. There will be another assignment tomorrow." Tomorrow. Another train. Another cargo, another journey. Kazimierz took the paper. His hand was shaking. The commander noticed. "Something wrong?" "No, sir. You look pale." "I'm fine." The commander studied him for a moment. Then he smiled. "First time?" Kazimierz nodded. "It gets easier," the commander said. You stop thinking about it. You just do the job. Does it get easier? Kazimierz wondered. Or do you just become someone else entirely? The commander walked away. Kazimierz was alone again. He looked out the window. The people from his train were being separated into groups. Men to the left, women and children to the right, the elderly in a separate line. A little girl was crying. She held on to her mother's coat. An SS soldier pulled them apart. Kazimierz turned away. He started the engine. The train began moving backward, away from the ramp, away from the people, away from the horror. But he couldn't move away from the sound, the crying, the screaming. It followed him. The journey back to Warsaw was silent. Empty wagons, no voices, just the tick-tack of the rails. But Kazimierz heard voices anyway, in his mind, in his soul. Evening came. The train pulled into Warsaw station. Kazimierz shut down the engine. He sat in the cabin for a long time. He didn't want to go home. He didn't want to face Helena. He didn't want to hug his children with these hands that had driven 340 people to their deaths. Finally, he climbed down from the cabin. The station was nearly empty. A few workers, a night guard. Kazimierz walked slowly toward the exit. His legs felt heavy. Every step required effort. Outside, the city was dark. Blackout regulations. No street lights, no car headlights, just shadows and silence. He walked through the streets he had known all his life, past the bakery where he bought bread every Sunday, past the church where he had married Helena, past the school where Piotr would start next year. Everything looked the same, but everything felt different. When he reached his building, he stood outside for several minutes, looking up at his window. The curtains were drawn. A faint light glowed behind them. Helena was waiting. He climbed the stairs. Each step echoed in the empty stairwell. He reached his door. His hand hesitated on the handle. Then he opened it. Helena was sitting at the table. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red. "You're home," she whispered. "I'm home." The children were already asleep. Kazimierz walked to their room. He stood in the doorway, watching them breathe. So peaceful, so innocent. Piotr's arm was wrapped around his favorite toy bear. Marek was curled up under his blanket. They looked so small, so fragile. Kazimierz remembered the little girl at the ramp, crying, being pulled from her mother. He closed the door quietly. Helena had prepared dinner, soup and bread, but Kazimierz couldn't eat. He sat at the table, staring at the bowl. "What happened?" Helena asked. "Nothing. Kazimierz, I did my job. That's all." Helena reached across the table. She took his hand. "It's not your fault." But was it? Kazimierz wondered. If not his fault, then whose? He pulled his hand away. "I need to sleep." That night, Kazimierz lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the junction, the switch lever, the choice he didn't make. Could he have saved them? Should he have tried? The questions circled endlessly in his mind. Near dawn, he finally fell asleep, and he dreamed. He dreamed of the little girl. She was standing on the rails, alone, crying. "Why didn't you stop?" she asked. "I couldn't," Kazimierz said. "My family." "We were families too," the girl said. Kazimierz woke with a start. Sweat covered his face. His heart raced. Morning light filtered through the curtains. A new day had begun. And on the table, another paper waited. Train 4472, Warsaw to Auschwitz. Cargo, 410 persons. No stops. Kazimierz picked up the paper. His hands didn't shake this time. Helena watched from the bedroom door. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. We could run, leave the city, hide, and go where? There's nowhere left." Helena's eyes filled with tears. "Then what will you do?" Kazimierz looked at his son's bedroom door. Then he looked at the paper in his hand. "I don't know yet," he said. But something had changed inside him. Something had broken. Or perhaps something had awakened. He put on his coat, kissed Helena, and walked to the door. "Kazimierz," Helena called. He turned. "Whatever you decide," she said quietly. "I'll understand." He nodded and left. The station was the same. The train was the same. The SS officer was the same. But Kazimierz was different. He boarded the train, started the engine, blew the whistle. The wagons were loaded. 410 people this time. More voices, more tears, more prayers. The train began to move. Tick-tack, tick-tack. Kazimierz stared ahead at the rails stretching into the distance. And 15 kilometers away, a junction waited.